Oh, hey, it's 4 o'clock. Shall we get going with some news?
Let's
Oh,
do
apparently
it.
it's the Komodo dragon. Is that a emote from Joe? But yep, 4 o'clock. It's news time. Hey, Steve, how you doing? Yes, new view for Dan. He's in his new office.
Yeah. Home office at the end of the garden.
Right, here we go. It was BAFTA nominations this week, and lots of good games have been nominated. And I personally just want to say a big congrats to our friends over at Hello Games, getting two nominations, one for No Man's Sky, brilliant game, no doubt in the evolving game category, as we've talked about many times before. Tons of massive free updates. The game just keeps growing and growing and growing. So nice to see it recognised with another nomination for evolving game, and also for The Last Campfire, which came out last year, and that's in the category for British game. And also congrats to our friends over at Sumo Digital from the Sheffield studio. Their game Sackboy Big Adventure has been nominated in 4 categories. So massive congrats to them. That's in the British category, so in the same as The Last Campfire, the family category, the music category, and the multiplayer category. So congrats to them. Lots of great games nominated, as I said. And the ones up for Game of the Year, the big one is Animal Crossing, Call of Duty Warzone, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Last of Us Part 2, and Valorant. So it's going to be a tight knit one there. I'm going to put my pick out as I think Animal Crossing is going to win. It had a phenomenal 2020. So
It did,
that's my
yeah.
pick. That's what I think is going to win.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a few of us on the Etch Play team who'd like to see Hades pick up something. Big fan, big favourite of the team. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Animal Crossing it was just so well timed, as I think Emma said on a previous show, just so well timed with lockdown and everything else. That was the destination to escape to, and I think a lot of people are very grateful to Nintendo for getting that one out when it did.
Definitely. And nominations are out now, so head over to the BAFTA site and vote for your favourite games. I'll be voting for mine. So, yep, head over there and get your votes in.
I think
Uh,
the BAFTAs are such a prestigious award. You know, there's quite a lot of awards, but certainly for a UK game studio, BAFTA is kind of certainly one of the prize awards to get your hands on. So yeah, good luck to everybody there.
Absolutely. In news, which relates to what we are going to be discussing a little bit later on in the show, we're going to be talking about acquisitions a little bit later, so stick with us for that. In news that came out this week, Epic is buying the Tonic Group, which famously has Mediatonic in it, which then means that you are getting Fall Guys, which I think was potentially one of the big reasons for them wanting. Fall Guys was a huge success in 2020. I know a lot of us in the play team were waiting eagerly for it. Got it when it came out, played it a ton, great game. So they bought the Tonic Group. So as well as getting Mediatonic, that also means they have got a regular corporation and Fortitude Games. I know there was initially people saying like, "Oh, does that mean Fall Guys is going to come off of Steam?" Because obviously Epic and Steam are big competitors in the PC space, but they've said it will remain on Steam. How long for remains to be seen, whether it stays indefinitely or eventually they pull it off and it becomes only on Epic. But yeah, big moves. That's a
Yeah,
big
very
acquisition.
very interesting, and I've no doubt we'll mention a bit more later. Particularly, I think of significance is obviously Fall Guys is a big player in the Tonic Group, and Epic are known for their Unreal Engine. Fall Guys is famously known for being a Unity game, so that's interesting to an extent, but it's just kind of typical of, it's not just about boosting this one tool, it's about diversifying the wider proposition and portfolio, I guess, within such a large organization as Epic. So yeah, very interesting.
Yep. There is another game delay that's been announced this week, and that is for the upcoming Need for Speed game. And the reason behind this is that the team at Criterion Games are being pulled onto the Battlefield 6 team to help push that game along. It's not unusual for this kind of thing to happen with studios being reassigned to work on different games. Not as usual that it gets announced that that's exactly what's happening, but that's what's going on. And EA have essentially said it was an easy decision to make because they want to get Battlefield moving and get that out. And with, again, back to acquisitions, with their acquisition of Codemasters not that long ago, I believe, they are a studio renowned for making great racing games. They've got a lot in the pipeline that are coming out over the next year. So what this does is it lets Codemasters get their racing games out, so EA aren't suffering in the racing Battlefield, it gets Battlefield moving along, and it also means the Criterion Games guys, once they're finished with Battlefield, can get back to Need for Speed and give it the time that it needs to make a game that they're really proud of and not try and rush everything out. So that's an interesting one that they announced it, and also interesting that, as we'll talk about later with the acquisitions, that acquisition has allowed and made that decision easier for EA to move a team across onto a different game to work on. So interesting news there.
Yeah, very, very convenient, isn't it? If your competitors are messing with your timelines, buy them, shuffle them around.
Yeah, exactly. Easy life. In interesting news this week, a fan programmer who plays GTA, specifically GTA Online, has reduced the load times by 70%. This was done by a guy called either Toast, or Tost. I don't know how he pronounces it, but he essentially he's looking at the code, was playing around with it, and that's a massive oversimplification. He was obviously doing a lot more than just playing around with it, but he I don't know, I'm not a coder. The guys in our team will shout at me for saying something like that. But yeah, he got the times down by about 70% on the load times. And now he's written in a blog about how he did it, and he is petitioning for Rockstar to take on board what he's done and put it into the game, because he's seen that those savings can be made. Grand Theft Auto, great game. We've talked about it a lot. Standing the test of time. It's now moving on to its third generation of Xbox console and PlayStation consoles, but something it's not really been able to shake is the long load time. So interesting that this guy's been able to get it down, and be interested to see whether Rockstar take that on board and they try and do something about it and get it down themselves as well.
Yeah, there's been a fascinating fan reaction. There you go, Adam. I'm avoiding the word interesting because we apparently are overusing that word. But this is the games industry. It is an interesting space. Fascinating reaction from some of the fans. And it's maybe predictably sort of, if it was so easy for somebody to just do this, Rockstar don't care about the gamers and yada yada, and obviously we know that's never the case. Things are never that simple, but maybe there's a lesson there for perhaps listening or that process of getting tuned into your audience. It was obviously a frustration. It's obviously been very well applauded for solving this or taking this approach to it, and I've no doubt there are plenty of people within Rockstar who could have done this. But very, very interesting.
Really interesting. Has Adam not got any work to do? If he's not got work to do, why is he not here on the show? What's he doing?
Absolutely.
Get his priorities right. If you're a fan of Pokemon, there's been some good Pokemon news over the last week or so. There's some new Pokemon games coming in the works. So coming up is Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which are remasters of, I believe they were DS games. They were originally called just Diamond and Pearl, and now they're called Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. We've seen this happen before, obviously with the Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee was kind of a remaster of the Pokemon Yellow games. So those are coming out in the not too distant. But what has really caught people's attention is Legends Arceus, which is coming. Pokemon fans for a long time have been asking for a Breath of the Wild style game, and looking at the trailer and what's been said about this game, here it comes. Here comes the Breath of the Wild Pokemon game. I know my brother is incredibly excited because he loves Breath of the Wild. He loves Pokemon. So when I told him about this, he was stoked for this, as are a lot of the Pokemon community. So have you seen this down? The trailer looks like a really interesting art style, as well as a different way of playing Pokemon.
I haven't. I've seen some of the discourse, and yeah, Pokemon and open world, that's definitely what people want. I would be worried or conscious of expectations. Like, that's such a wild spread of what this game could be. But obviously, I'm sure that's in hand. But yeah, exciting to see how that will turn out.
Yep, lots of excited people, myself included, big Pokemon fan. So yeah, we'll see when that comes out. Bad news, if you are a Call of Duty fan, BioWare have confirmed that you pretty much cannot fit the entire Call of Duty experience onto a base PlayStation 4 anymore. A base PlayStation 4 comes with 500 gigabytes of data. Obviously, the newer consoles have more room, but the base PS4 has 500 gigabytes. So if you wanted the latest Warzone update, Black Ops and Modern Warfare package, you can't fit it on. It just doesn't fit. So you would have to remove bits of the game to fit them all on. And yeah, they're notoriously big games, but I mean that's insane. Even if because it's not the only game you're going to play. If you're a Call of Duty fan, you're going to want other games. If you can't even fit the Call of Duty games on,
it is. That's.
that's
I mean,
trouble.
it's indicative of games are going to keep getting bigger. Hard drive space is going to keep reducing. It is a challenge of the console generations. 7-8 year release cycles. We are seeing hardware evolve way faster than that, and it's amazing what people do achieve with 7-year-old hardware. You look at the likes of The Last of Us 2 playing on the previous generation of PS4, incredible. Red Dead Redemption 2, people do so much with it. But yeah, if the games are going to keep getting bigger, and the Call of Duty franchise has the following, they can make that call and make that happen. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what the next biggest is and how quickly the wider market starts to follow suit.
Yeah. Something we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Anthem, and we were talking about whether that was going to continue to evolve or if they were going to shelve it. It seemed very much like it was going to be shelved, and it has now been confirmed work on Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next, as it had been being called in a couple of places, has ceased. They made the difficult decision that they are not going to continue to work on the game. The team is instead going to be working on the next Dragon Age game and the next Mass Effect game. The game's not going to be shut down. It's going to be kept alive on its current server. But yeah, if you were waiting for that game to be improved, get some updates, not going to happen. As we thought, it's been decided that it's not going to continue. Always a difficult decision, but as we spoke about a few weeks ago, it's not had the smoothest of paths. So,
and it's understandable. You're a big organization. You've got some beloved IP that is going to sell well and do well. Do you keep putting resources onto this arguable dud? It is a shame because I'm always keen to see a larger studio innovate and come up with something new and kind of break the mold and stop the formulaic releases. But if it wasn't working, then you've got to make the difficult decisions.
And I'm sure Dragon Age and Mass Effect will do very well. So yeah, unfortunate if you're a fan of Anthem, but yeah, not going any further.
Being asked if Dan has played Mass Effect yet? No, not yet. But it's on the to-do list, on the never-ending to-do list. And yes, Emma, this is my new digs. We should have led the news with this info. We
should have. Yeah, we need something running across the bottom, like on actual news, as like breaking news, so that people can get it. Because to be honest, that's the biggest news story of the week, right?
Yeah,
this game.
It's the most exciting, most interesting news for me is my new home office.
Cool. And yeah, this month, Amazon's Game On has launched on iOS. If you don't know what Amazon's Game On is, it is a platform for sharing clips of mobile games. It launched on Android back in November, but it's come to iOS now. What it lets you do is take 30-second to 5-minute clips of mobile games, and then it's got capabilities to commentary over the top, do some editing over the top, and post it. Obviously, if you weren't aware, Amazon owns Twitch now, so they're heavily involved in the gaming arena. They're trying to grow it, and it's interesting now to see, I used the word again, apologies Adam, that they're focusing on the mobile side of things because it's not huge on Twitch, and they've kept Game On completely separate from Twitch. It's got its own branding, its own channels, so yeah. If you're interested in that, check that out. As I said, it's available on Android and it's now available on iOS.
Exciting stuff.
And finally, I know we're Switch fans. I know there's in the chat who are Switch fans. There is a new Switch coming. It's been talked about a couple of times when an upgraded Switch is coming. One's coming later this year. It's going to have a 7-inch OLED screen, which is apparently being provided by Samsung. It's expected to go into mass production in June. No release date has been set, but it's been estimated as is no surprise, it's going to be out in time for the holidays. So everyone can get it for Christmas. And it's also been reported that it will be able to play 4K on when it's hooked up to TVs, but keeping it at the 7-inch screen, not going any bigger. It's expected to try and keep the battery life still okay when you're playing handheld. I play it pretty much basically handheld mine. I very rarely put it connected to the TV. So yeah, but yep, 4K is coming. Yep, 4K Mario Kart, Emma. You can take Adam down in that. Plays on easy. But yeah, exciting news if you are looking for an upgraded Switch.
Into this 4K Nintendo Switch, you don't typically kind of go to the Switch or the Nintendo library for the jaw-dropping high fidelity graphics, but I guess it is becoming that.
Now you do.
Now you do, exactly.
And yeah, that's all we had for the news this week. Dan, I think you just wanted to talk about something which we tweeted out yesterday or the day before around PC Gamers and Black History Month.
Yes, PC Gamer have created a list of 11 up-and-coming streamers well worth checking out as part of the celebrations and recognition of the efforts around Black History Month. So go and have a look at that. We'll stick a link in the chat. And yeah, I guess we're now going to go and watch some gameplay. And
we are, I believe it's Adam and Ben G checking out Control. Enjoy that. Stick with us. After that's done, me and Dan will be back, and we're going to be talking about what's been going on with game acquisitions, because it's been a lot happening. So stick with us, and we'll see you very soon.
Ben Gammon, welcome to today's video. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Are you good?
I'm good, and I'm ready. I'm feeling in the mood for Control. I'm ready to control things. This is Control for the Xbox. It's actually running on a Series X, but it's not the upgraded version. And as you can see, it's pretty creepy. Straight off the bat, I'm in a kind of brutalist office-scape, and there's people hovering in midair. This takes place in the fictional Federal Bureau of Control, which is like a Men in Black style organisation that battles paranormal threats. And you play as Jessie Faden, who has some psychic abilities of her own, which we'll see during the combat. This is mostly going to be combat focused. I'm just going to fight my way through this section here. And yeah, we're going to talk about the game. Have you seen Control before? Have you played Control?
I haven't played it, but I remember seeing trailers for it and thinking it looks amazing.
It's definitely got a really good graphical style, lots of particle effects, which, I mean, there's some right there. Look at those sparks. I hate these guys. They float around and they dodge you when you try and throw things at them. So you have to shoot them with your special magic brain gun. And the game's got a real cinematic sensibility, like we kind of saw at the beginning there. It's got like live action video in there. It's got really good sense of kind of brutalist style, the architecture. It's all really cohesive kind of world building. This area of the game is a place called Central Research, which is one of the kind of biggest, most open kind of atriums, I guess. A lot of it's kind of more kind of contained office space style. You do get a bit of a variety. You've got the whole building. In fact, we can go into this office here in a second, actually, just to make sure there's people following me.
Love that like rainbow effect that comes off those guys.
Yeah, right. It's like a psychic aura effect with like a spectrum of colour, which is it's really stylish. Stylish is actually the kind of primary word to describe this game. I do think if you're a fan of kind of horror stuff, this is definitely a game worth checking out. It's got sort of just really fascinating world, I guess, where there's all these objects of power and psychic abilities, and the Bureau's obviously trying to control them, and it hasn't gone very well because they've been overrun by these sort of psychic zombies. Here's kind of office that you can see. So loads of stuff, and I'm not going to dig into it here, but if you want to, you can really like read the posters on the walls and really get a sense of what's going on here. It takes place in this building called the Oldest House, and the kind of idea behind the Oldest House is it's this skyscraper in New York that's just always been there, but you just never notice it. It's got like a psychic field around it, and obviously Jessie has found her way in, and turns out things are going pretty bad in there. They've been taken over by...
I take it there's stuff moving all around the room, isn't there? every now and then.
Yeah, I
Or
think
is that you doing that?
some
or
of
is
that's
that...
glitchy. Some of that's just the fact that there's like this is me moving things for sure. This is me. I'm picking this up with my brain powers.
I love the fact that projector's still working.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, there's a lot of people out here. Oh, and right above me as well. So yeah, the bad, or the villain, I guess, is kind of referred to as the hiss. It's like this noise. Oh, okay, I'm getting blown up by rockets. This noise that kind of infects people, but it doesn't affect you for some reason. You're kind of immune to it, so you've got to fight everyone else who is infected. Let's see if I can catch a rocket here. Yeah, that's the good stuff.
Oh, that looked satisfying. Was
Yeah,
that satisfying?
That is satisfying.
I love the red like blood effect when you take damage around the edge of the screen.
Yeah, I'm taking a lot of damage here. Taking a lot more damage than I would have liked. Yeah, I mean the psychic abilities never really get boring. Like I don't know if you ever played. It reminds me of a really old game. There's an old game called Psyops that had kind of these like telekinesis powers, and yeah, they're good here. It's very satisfying, especially when you do one. I did one a second ago there, where you like pull an object towards you, and it hits somebody on the way towards you, and then it hits somebody else on the way back. That's a lot of fun. I missed it there, but you get the idea. So this is made by Remedy Entertainment. They made the original Max Payne games, Max Payne 1 and 2, which I guess explains their kind of cinematic style. And they recently announced that actually they've made more money in the last financial year than ever before, despite not releasing anything new. Control came out before that financial year. These little kind of things you can find around here, collectibles. I think that's kind of in part based on the fact that it's on Game Pass now, and on PS Plus as well, I think. So they've done some like lucrative deals to get it onto the platforms, and they did some expansions as well, actually, like a expansion pack or two, which I'm sure made some money.
The whole environment destructible?
Pretty much. I think it's, I mean, when it comes to the psychic ability, when you press like the telekinesis button, it'll just grab whatever you've got aimed at, or if there's nothing, it'll just rip a piece off the floor or a nearby wall. I've never really tried to push that to its limit. I imagine there probably is a limit. Probably just you do surface damage to get some chunks, and it just generates more. Yeah, this is definitely going badly. Yeah, you can see some of those really nice particle effects here with the kind of colours and the really, really good looking game. Oh, don't want to be here.
Oh yeah, the whole sofa.
There we go, got him on the way in. Back.
If you throw that correctly, horizontally, you can take out like 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean that's what I want actually. I just want a room full of sofas and then bad guys all at the other end, so I can just throw the sofas consistently.
Bonus points if they end up sitting on it at the end of it.
The game's actually not always this combat focused. There is actually a lot of storytelling in it. I just figured for this video, watch me shoot some people. Why not? It's a good way to show off the particle effects. You can see like the glass breaking and stuff there as well.
What's that red stuff?
The red stuff is part of the kind of infection that the building has got, and as you defeat more waves of the hiss, you find that kind of recedes, and the building kind of like shifts and moves around when you cleanse areas, which is quite interesting. So you have like, you can explore the whole building basically, but it's gated by whether you found key cards to unlock certain security clearances. So it's got that kind of like, you backtrack sometimes, re-go through old areas, tidy them up and defeat everyone in them. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting game. It's like I say, it's on Game Pass now and was just on PlayStation Plus recently, so hopefully you've got a chance to play this if you have either of those services. I think it's a really cool game. Definitely one of the best examples of kind of world building and creepy senses of dread, as you kind of, some of the environments are really creepy, and some of the stuff you can like figure out about what's going on here.
Yeah, it looks great. It's going downstairs.
Yeah, Oh, dead people. That's how you know you're going in the right direction. Well, this is Control for the Xbox and available on other platforms as well, including the PC and PlayStation. So thanks for joining me, Ben, and we'll see you again on a future X Play video.
Bye.
I want to go and hide in this shelter. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
There we go. First, I'd done so well up to this point.
I'm glad you noticed.
I didn't know. It was the people in the chat noticing that we were coming through on mute. It's because I mute the audio so we can chat in the background, and clearly I overlooked that. So, lesson learned.
All you missed was a slamming Adam for being terrible at Control. But yes, that was Control. You can now hear us, and we're going to be talking about acquisitions. So we mentioned this in one of the news items with Epic acquiring Tonic Group Games, and we've just noticed over the last 12 months there's been so many acquisitions going on that it would be remiss of us not to talk about it. It's such a huge factor in the games industry. Just before we start our talk, I will preface with the fact we're not merger and acquisition experts. We are just observing what's going on, reading what's going on, and naturally, as we always do, we have an opinion. So we thought we'll talk about it.
We've had this on the radar for weeks. I mean, all through lockdown, every week, acquisition, and we're like, we should really talk about this, but we never really had the confidence or the knowledge. But we thought, let's just dive into it because it is such an interesting subject. And so, yeah, don't take any investment advice from us, but we'll highlight a few things.
So yeah, as we said, there's a lot of acquisitions been going on, and it was estimated that $20.5 billion in acquisitions, investments, and IPOs happened in the first 9 months of 2020. So that's a huge amount of money, and bearing in mind that's the first 9 months of 2020. That doesn't include the $7 billion purchase that Microsoft paid for ZeniMax. So you can add 7 million just for the last 3 months with that alone, and everything else that went on. So also in 2020, Zynga bought Peak Games for $2 billion. There was 41 mobile game company acquisitions, which was a total of around $4.4 billion worth. PC and console game deals were around $10.5 billion. Tencent, as you might expect, were very active, and also the Embracer Group. So the Embracer Group led 11 acquisition deals. The largest was of Saber Interactive, which was worth $525 million, and the acquisition of the Saber Group saw them get access to studios in about 6 or 7 different countries. Embracer Group, as you may or may not know, also own Koch, who are the parent company of our friends over at Deep Silver. So yeah, lots going on, and the Embracer Group are already getting going in 2021 with they brought in recently Gearbox, which I think we mentioned in a news item on the show. So yeah, lots and lots of acquisitions being made. In VR and AR games, 12 deals happened in the first 9 months of 2020, combined value of $344 million. So, this isn't chump change, and there's a lot of companies changing hands.
And we'd be remiss to not get the weekly mention of the global pandemic that's going on as well. So that certainly hasn't. Obviously, a deal doesn't turn around. Deals like these don't turn around in no time, but it certainly isn't looking to be slowing down or stagnated in any way, shape, or form, thanks to the pandemic. So yeah, lots and lots going on.
Yeah, so I mean, the industry is booming anyway, with or without the pandemic. Obviously, gaming every year is seeing a huge boost and it's a huge industry of growth. Obviously, that has been amplified in 2020. It's one of the industries which wasn't, it didn't get off scot-free, but it was maybe less impacted as some other industries due to the pandemic. Obviously, people wanted to play a lot more games, and as soon as companies could get themselves set up to work remotely, they could carry on. Obviously, we've talked about not as efficiently as they would have typically been because they weren't necessarily prepared for this. But yeah, the industry has boomed, and That is one of the reasons potentially behind why we've seen so many happen in 2020, especially with the publicly traded companies. They're starting to trade at higher multiples, and investors are obviously going to be interested in if they can then negotiate a deal lower than that. Any exponential growth is going to be great for them. So that's definitely going to have played a factor with that boom and the prices, the stock prices going up. That people want to get in before it peaks, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there is a correlation between when stock prices go up, when revenue goes up. It's not so much based on profit. So if you make an acquisition, then your profit gets impacted, but you're introducing all the new revenues from these additional companies. And we tend to see if you make an acquisition, your revenue goes up, your stock price goes up. This is an incentive for these large publicly traded organizations to do more acquisitions. And also it's something to do with the profit. If your game is blowing up and you're selling loads of copies or you're getting loads of subscribers, you're making a lot of money, your shareholders expect you to do something with that money, or you pay it out to the shareholders. So there's a lot of incentives for these successful games businesses to chase these acquisitions.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, 4.4 billion in the first 9 months of 2020 were around mobile game company acquisitions, which was about 41. I was listening to a podcast the other day around this, and they were talking about that we're likely seeing more and more acquisitions on the mobile front because it's reaching that maturity stage, and people are getting more confident in. They understand what the value of these companies are, and they understand what the life cycle of those games are going to be. And it made me smile because they referred to them as forever franchises, which is we refer to things as long life games. So it's kind of along the same line of thinking that we have, and that people are seeing that these games that stick around, they continue to do well. Like they were talking about looking at the top 100 grossing mobile games, and that list doesn't change very often. It's typically the same games. It's very difficult to penetrate that list and get in. So if you're wanting to grow your business and get into that, the only way you could potentially do that is by acquiring one of those companies and adding that to your portfolio and kind of reaping some of the rewards of backing that company that's doing well and helping push it on rather than trying to compete with it essentially.
Yeah, and I think if you see the hallmarks of one of those long life games or forever brands, if you can see the early indicators are there that this is going to be one of those, and you have the cash reserves, as we were saying, like a lot of these games companies have done extremely well. They have the money, they have the profit to try and do something with. It's kind of like a very appealing proposition to say, well, actually, this game here, it looks like it's got 3, 4, 5 years of life in it. Let's get in as early as possible and help maybe scale them up, grow that quicker. An isolated company might not be able to achieve the same growth without that support, and everybody benefits.
Yeah, and something that's worthwhile noting as well, like a lot of these games companies are going to do great things. In the initial, they do get investment, and eventually those people who invested are going to be looking for an exit strategy and looking for like liquidity of their investment and reap their rewards for being upfront. So it's not uncommon if once those funds have reached, they need time to mature and to generate the profit that it's going to be worthwhile to sell. So if you've invested it and you're ready to jump out and you think, okay, now it's time for me to leave, get my money back and the profit from the investment, the way to do that is to sell that on to someone else. And that's not to say that necessarily investors are like, right, time to jump ship and forcing founders of game companies to sell. A lot of them, when the investors initially in the early days, like they'll reach a barrier of how much value they can add themselves. And if, as you said, if you want that game studio to kick on to the next level, you're going to have to look for strategic partners to give you the next boost that you might not be able to do yourself. So I think that definitely plays a factor in it as well. Like, as I said, the exit strategy, or not necessarily the exit strategy, you're so invested in it, you want to kick it to the next level, but you can't do that without being acquired or trying to merge with someone else who can bring that weight to push you that extra bit forward.
Absolutely, and a lot of the headlines around these huge acquisitions, but there are smaller games company acquisitions, game service providers. Even ourselves, a very small example of that. Obviously, we were previously moved to. We joined the Etch group, and that was exactly that scenario you're talking about. We'd running a business, a games business, or any business is extremely difficult, and it's very hard to break through the various ceilings, each layer. And if there's an opportunity to get some extra support or some help, it's not always about, say, exiting or big financial rewards. It's actually unlocking the next level, and that can be really appealing, especially obviously we know a lot of game developers, and I'm sure there are lots of people watching who can relate. It's kind of like you want to make games. You don't necessarily care about the ins and outs of building a business, growing a business, adhering to HR requirements. And if somebody's offering you the opportunity to focus on doing what you love, because we have the resources and we have the services and the teams and the personnel to do all the other stuff, that is an appealing proposition on top of any financial reward or security that you get from it.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of it's a two-way thing. Like as you alluded to there, like it's beneficial to both parties. Obviously, if you're the company getting acquired, you're typically getting that injection of cash, you're getting that security net, you're getting that backing from someone else to help push you forward. But the people who are acquiring you are, getting your IP, they're getting your expertise, they're adding your value to their portfolio. Typically, you're joining a portfolio, so that benefits them. Like in the example of we talked about earlier with Epic buying Tonic Games, and obviously with that we said they get Mediatonic, Irregular Corporation, and Fortitude Games, and likely without the boom of Fall Guys, that's probably not a deal that's going to necessarily happen or be worth the value that it was. But yeah, for those in the Tonic group, all of a sudden they have this huge backing behind them, and kind of it takes some of the pressure off. And Epic Games now have Fall Guys, and they have the studio that made Fall Guys, where everyone's now been like, right, what's next? Because that's the thing. Once you've done a game that is great, everyone's waiting for the next one because you're expected to do that next game. And as silly as it might sound, that's probably a great time for an investor to get in, because you've proven that you can do it, and they can expect you to potentially do another great game, but it's not guaranteed. So you could potentially buy a Tonic group at the value of what it's worth with Fall Guys and expect them to go and do things, but you're not necessarily going to have to pay for the next big blockbuster. You're backing them that they've got another one in them.
Exactly. And it comes back to what I was mentioning earlier about kind of the early indicators, and obviously not even an early indicator in the case of Fall Guys. It was a huge smash hit, but it follows in the wake of Fortnite, also owned by Epic. And if they're thinking, well, Fortnite was our lightning in a bottle, and we don't necessarily have the formula to recreate it, but what we do have is the formula to go from 12 months to 3 years and keep it growing, keep it evolving, keep our audience engaged. We've got that formula. They've got the lightning in a bottle at the beginning bit. Why don't we partner up and apply the lessons that we've learned from Fortnite to Fall Guys, and give that an extended lease of life, which I've no doubt will be a conversations that are happening, and knowledge being transferred there for sure.
Yeah, and the thing with mergers and acquisitions is it lets you potentially move into a new space where you don't have the expertise, and you can bring that company in that's going to have that expertise and push you. So we talked about on the show a couple of weeks ago when EA acquired Glue to expand their mobile business. I mean, I think they said it was going to increase their mobile business by, I forget the figure, but maybe like by 50%. And that was a mark of intent that, right, we are getting involved in mobile games. We don't have the capability ourselves. The only way we're going to be able to do that is if we acquire someone, and they acquired Glue. So that enabled EA to get into that market, because otherwise they're going to have to start from scratch. Obviously they'd have the funds to start from scratch, but why would you when you also have the funds to buy someone who is established, already doing well, already has the expertise, and you're immediately in that market? So it's a great way to expand your expertise and your market reach if you kind of buy someone who's been there, done that, and has proven they can do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it would be very, very complimentary and positive. It's not always great for all the parties. There's a lot of risk involved in these acquisitions, and I think particularly in such a culture and lifestyle focused industry as game development. Let's take Mediatonic or the Tonic Group. They are a relatively small, close knit, kind of family feel organization that are now becoming a part of one of the largest games businesses in the world. There will be changes. There will be even down to things like operations and HR processes and things like that they're not used to. And that's another consideration for both parties: is are we a good fit? And do our values align? Do we all know what we want out of this? I'm sure it's very rare that the entire studio gets consulted on these things, but there will be an impact on them, and it doesn't always work out. And as we were talking about with the sort of reallocation of resource at EA, sometimes if you're working on this great, highly exciting thing, but it's too small for this huge organization, you might get repurposed, reassigned. And that kind of agility and autonomy can be hampered.
Yeah, exactly. It's a difficult decision to make, and it would be easy to make the assumption that you sell to the highest bidder, but that's, as you say, that's not necessarily always going to be the case or the right thing to do. It's very much getting that culture match. And the podcast I was listening to before, I forget which studio it was, but they were saying like they were acquired by Zynga, and Zynga weren't the highest bidder, but Zynga had the best offer of keeping their autonomy and the backing that they were going to give them from not just the money, but letting them be autonomous. And, making games is a very creative venture, and we know the people who make them know what they want to make, and they want to express themselves through the game. So then if you're acquired by someone who's like, no, you've got to do it this way and you have to do this, like that, the cash is great, but if it's not everything, and if you lose your creative grasp, then
I think purpose is a big consideration in this kind of like, it's great to have financial reward from these things, but you've still got to be working, and even the founders are often stay involved and contracted to a certain amount of tenure, and you've got to be thinking, well, is this going to continue to go in the direction I want? Is there a reason for this acquisition? And often acquisitions are for already successful. I'm sure Mediatonic didn't need the cash injection. That's probably one of the least interesting things for them, because they probably generated more revenue than they knew what to do with. And maybe that's one of their thoughts is, we don't. This is new to us. We don't know what's best to do with all of this, all of these assets and resources that we're now collating. And actually, here's a guiding hand, and we like their vision and their mission. And I think the alignment is a very key consideration. Obviously, you've got to get to the point of having interested parties in the first place is probably the biggest battle for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about the value of IP, and obviously another value which can come into play when making acquisitions and kind of steps away from people being left with their autonomy necessarily. And this works well for some people, is that it's a way of bolstering your workforce. We know in the games industry, recruitment is a huge thing. Like pretty much everyone is hiring all of the time, and acquiring a studio can be a great way to bolster your workforce.
There's and a lot of acquisitions are based solely on that. There is no interesting IP. There's maybe sort of average potential in the work that's happening, but there are some talented people here. They call them acqui-hires, I think is the fun term around that. And absolutely, recruitment is so hard and so competitive, and maybe this is a good way of shortcutting that. Yeah.
So I'll just wrap up by saying, like, obviously we've been talking about kind of like $1 billion deals, and that's like the top end. It's not all $1 billion deals. Like kind of the top line. The Microsoft buying ZeniMax was $7 billion, and then even within the scales within a group. So, for example, the Sumo Group, they acquired Pipeworks for $100 million. And then they acquired Pixelant for 250,000. Now, I'm not saying 250,000 is chump change. It's not at all. That's a large sum of money. But those are the kind of scales that you're talking about. And there's large numbers of these deals happening. Like I said, 41 mobile game company acquisitions for 4.4 billion. That's going to vary from the hundreds of thousands to the millions to the billions. So it's a huge scale, quite an unfathomable scale. But yeah, when we talk about it, and it sounds, we're talking about $1 billion deals, which seem unattainable. Like that's not all it is. There is a huge scale when it comes to acquisitions. So yeah, and we've talked about it. We said we were going to talk about it for weeks.
Let us know how let us know how we got on, because not our area of expertise by any stretch, but obviously we do try and keep on top of all aspects of the industry, and that is a very significant one and well worth keeping tabs on and making your predictions. So Adam posed the question in the chat: if you were going to buy a video game company, which one would you buy? Etch Play. If anybody's got, if Microsoft have got another $7 billion, I'm sure we could have a chat to the higher ups and negotiate something. But yeah,
we'll see. But yep, I want to thank you, Dan, for joining me as always. We talk about the news. Thank you to Adam and Ben for checking out Control in the middle of the show, and most of all, thank you everyone who has joined us in the chat. Thank you for participating. We love seeing your comments, and we appreciate you taking your time out of your afternoon to spend it with us. As always, we'll be back at 4 o'clock next week to do it all again. We'll have more news, a new game to try, and a new topic to discuss. And yeah, we're looking forward to see you there. If you can't wait to see us until then, check out our YouTube channel. All the old episodes are put on there, along with other industry interviews and us checking out games. Or just come say hello to us on Twitter. But until then, we'll see you next week.
See you later.
Microsoft better of more than 7 billion. We're definitely worth more than that.
Yeah, okay. I'll add a couple more zeros.
Yeah, definitely.